As always, I like to start many video blogs by just saying thank you. Not everything that I say is agreed with, and that's normal and that's understandable. A lot of it is, and so many of you are very kind, and so many of you reach out to me all the time. And just recently I had a question that was submitted to me that basically went like this, and I've heard it many times, and it finally struck a nerve to where I felt like, man, I think I need to say something about it. And a betrayed spouse said to me, Samuel, why doesn't my unfaithful spouse respect me? There seems to be no regard for what I want. There's no respect for my choices. When I express my needs, when I express my desires, even when I express my boundaries, they just don't seem to be respected, and I don't feel respected. It's funny, I was unable to sleep the other night, and this quote kept coming from me. I've heard it accredited to a few people, so I'm not going to just lay it out at one person, but the quote kind of goes like this. It says, you have to learn to get up from the table when respect is no longer being served. And there's a point where you as a betrayed, primarily for this discussion, have to realize that if the unfaithful is not respecting you, then typically, obviously the problem is them, but there comes a point where you have to say, look, you get to say no, but you don't get to say no and have life remain the same. And that's where it's vital that the betrayed spouse has boundaries in place. And when the unfaithful crosses those boundaries or violates those boundaries, it's not like you have to lose your mind, but there has to be some consequences that you begin to lay out to them that simply says, no, you don't get to do that and have me just stay the same and expect no reaction from me. I'll come back to that. But I want to tell you that early on in recovery, there was a point where I knew afterwards that I wasn't having a lot of respect or fear or reverence, if you will, for Samantha. And then there was this kind of moment, it was probably 2 or 3 months into recovery. She came into my home office and just said, look, we need to talk. And I was like, oh, okay. And there were several moments like that where unannounced, she just said, we need to talk. And I said, okay. And she basically said, look, I need you to know that when we get to Austin, we're going to separate. And the only way that you'll be back in the house is if you do A, B, and C. I'm not going to listen to you manipulate me. I'm not going to go through all this stuff. This is the way it is. This is what I've chosen. If you want to talk to one of my friends who she was talking to, the only friend that stayed, she said, you can talk to him. I've already talked with him and told him what I am going to be doing. This is an important facet of my recovery. And if you can't respect that, then that sends a message to me that you don't respect me. And if you can't respect me, we don't have a future together. And she said, do you understand? And I was crying and upset and tried to talk. She goes, no, I'm not going to get into all that right now. Do you understand this? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, okay. And she walked away. And I was kind of left for dead in my office. I mean, my life had already been swirling around me, but there was this point where I was like, holy crap. She's never done that. Like, she's never just said, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what's going to happen. And there was something in me that, yes, I was scared to death and I was devastated and, oh gosh, I can't be without my kids. And I was still working through so many issues. But there was a part of me that was like, listen, Samantha's not playing any games. And yes, I didn't like it. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was hurt. I was disoriented, all those things. But at the core was, dude, Samantha means business. And there comes a point, and this may not be for all of you, but the principle is for all of you. But this experience may be for many of you that you just feel like, man, my unfaithful spouse or partner won't respect me. And I want to tell you and submit to you that I think it's time for you that are in that particular situation to draw some boundaries and enforce those boundaries, because no one is going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. And you respecting yourself, and maybe even going through the process of regaining some self-respect and self-love, even after you've been betrayed, I get it. I know it's hard, but for the topic that we're discussing today, you have to command respect, or in many cases, there isn't going to be any. The simple truth that really sucks to hear is that not everybody makes it. We have an incredible success rate through our EMS weekend that is fantastic. We have an incredible success rate through our online courses, but that's not the gist of what I'm discussing today. The fact is, not everybody makes it. Not every unfaithful spouse decides to do the work. And if you were to kind of lay out, Samuel, what does that mean? Well, not everybody wants to commit to the process. Not everybody wants to do the hard work. And not everybody wants to go through the time that it takes to put the hard work into practice, and the time that it takes for it to work. Medicine typically doesn't work instantly. There's a time that it takes. There is a process to it, and not everybody wants to do that. And again, not everybody wants to end things with their affair partner. And so the sad truth is not everybody makes it. The wonderful truth is far more people make it than you may ever hear about, because the loudest voices on the internet are not usually the healed voices. They're usually the angry, the bitter, the resentful voices, the people that are still stuck in their pain, that are lashing out, that were done wrong by their spouse, and so now they're still angry about it. The loudest voices, unfortunately, are kind of oftentimes the people that are still stuck. And so you get bombarded by these voices all the time. But my submission to you as a betrayed spouse is that you have to respect yourself first. And you may need to start a big journey on that. But then there comes a point where you say, no. I have value and I have meaning. And if your unfaithful spouse is not respecting you, and there isn't a sense of, oof, I think it's time that you begin to pull back and say, I'm going to work on me and be the best version of me. Even if I'm a complete mess right now, I'm still deserving of value and respect. And if they're not going to choose to respect you, then maybe it's time to get up from the table. I'm not saying divorce. I'm not saying separation. I'm not saying it's over. I'm just saying it probably means that you're going to pull back and go, no. I'm no longer playing these games that you do whatever you want and expect me to just be here, waiting for you, just at your beck and call. No. Eventually, I hope that you come to the point where you say, I can no longer keep chasing you. I can no longer keep begging you. I can no longer keep empowering this rat race of dysfunction and chaos and refusal to do recovery work. You have the power to draw lines and enforce those lines because you deserve respect. Now, before you take this video and send it to your unfaithful, unruly spouse or partner and say, watch this is what's coming your way, don't do that. Digest it, embrace it. Take it upon yourself and go, okay, what are some boundaries that are non-negotiable? Maybe talk to an expert or a professional and say, okay, help me, I need to draw some boundaries. And then that expert or that professional will then say, okay, well, what's going to happen when they break those boundaries and violate them? And I read this the other day, I thought it was funny, but it's also true, is that when they lose their mind about your boundaries, it's probably a good indication that those boundaries are necessary. The problem is not your boundaries. The problem is their reaction and their refusal to respect your boundaries. Now be careful. A boundary doesn't say, look, at any given time, I, the betrayed spouse, need to be able to discuss the details about your affairs. That's unrealistic because people have jobs and people have lives and people have clients and there's kids. It doesn't work that way. A better boundary would say, look, at least twice out of a 5-day week, I need an hour to sit down and discuss where we're at, recovery work. My reminders are triggers, your work, your job, your future. I need at least an hour setting to be able to have these discussions. Not rage, not throw stuff, not lose my mind, but to be able to at least maybe twice a week for your situation, sit down for an hour and have these discussions. If you can't do that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to live that way. And there may become times where you say, you don't necessarily say, if you're not willing to do this, then this is going to happen. Sometimes you say, I need this. If you're not willing to give me this, we're going to have a problem. And then you kind of pull back and just go, I need to think this through. What is this saying about his or her heart? What is this saying about where they're at? Because I've asked them to get help for my pain and my hurt, and they've said no. What is that communicating? That communicates that there's a disconnect, and you can't keep tolerating that disconnect. Respect is an essential part of repair work, both by the unfaithful as well as by the betrayed. And if you're not sensing, feeling, experiencing that there's a healthy sense of respect for your pain and your hurt, then I want to challenge you graciously. What changes do you need to make? You can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result, and maybe it's time for you to draw some boundaries.